All right, the time is now 6:05. I'll go ahead and call our regular school board meeting to order. Roll call has been taken. Now we'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. So now we'll move on to item number 3, which is to review, revise, and approve the agenda. Is there any trustee who wants to move or remove an agenda item? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as written? Moved by trustee Sherman, second by trustee Witt. Any public comment on the agenda item? All in favor for approving tonight's agenda, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Now we'll move on to item 4, which is to approve the minutes for the special meeting of May 23rd, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the special board meeting? Moved by trustee Sherman, second by Vice Chair Walker Andrews. Any trustee comments? Any public comment on the agenda item? All trustees for approving the special meeting of May 23rd, 2023, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Now to move on to approve the minutes for the regular board meeting of May 23rd, 2023. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Moved by trustee Witt, second by trustee Sherman. Any trustee comments? Any public comment on the agenda item? All those in favor for approving the regular board meeting minutes of May 23rd, 2023, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Now we'll move on to item 5, which is public comment and correspondence. The public comment portion of the meeting is set aside for the public to address the board as a body. It is not time for board response or for the public to ask questions. Do not infringe on the right of privacy of others. Please sign in and spell your first and last name. You are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The chair may interrupt or terminate an individual speaker if the statements are out of order or over 3 minutes. Any public comment?
We do have one public comment from Robin Abishaw.
Now? Yes, okay. Thank you to those of you who acknowledged the public comment and follow-up emails regarding communication and school safety from the last board meeting. Tonight, I would like to read some questions I sent to Superintendent Lodge on June 5th. I asked these questions of MCPS administration and of all of you as MCPS board members. I continue to have some questions about MCPS policy around bullying, harassment, intimidation, and around communication. I understand that you cannot discuss individual students or families due to privacy concerns. I am not asking you to do that. I would like to know how MCPS decides what, how, and when to communicate with students' parents/guardians. When a school experiences a lockdown, for example, parents are informed. What is the policy if and when a violent incident happens on school property and is witnessed by students? If parents are informed when their children are late to class or when an ambulance appears by a school, it seems they should also be informed when a violent incident takes place at their child's school. What does MCPS policy say about violent incidents and communication? If, as stated in its comment to KPACS, MCPS policies expressly prohibit violence as well as bullying, harassment, and intimidation, what happens when violence, bullying, harassment, and/or intimidation occur? These are some other questions I have about school safety. 1, how many adults are assigned to school playgrounds during lunch recess at MCPS elementary and middle schools? 2, are there enough adults for the entire playground area to be under visual supervision, or are there hidden areas? 3, Are these adults teachers or administrators who know the children, or are they adults who come in only for lunch recess? 4, what types of training do these adults have in recognizing, preventing, and de-escalating bullying, harassment, and intimidation? Thank you for your consideration of these important questions. I look forward to hearing a response.
Any other public comment?
No.
All right, we'll move on to number 6, which is reports and announcements. First one is announcements from Superintendent. Over to you, Superintendent Lodge.
Now it's working. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank you all for graduation weekend. Willard on Thursday night, and then Sentinel, Big Sky, Hellgate on Saturday, and Sealy on Sunday, and the graduation weekend really went well. And I want to thank all of you who attended and spent some time, and it was really, we debriefed it today with the high school principals and tweaked it just a little bit of this and that to improve a few things, but not much. But anyway, thank you. It was very nice to see all of you for those 5 different agenda graduations. Next, 2 weeks from today, on the 27th, we finally got our 5 o'clock meeting scheduled with our boundary study people. And we had a little trouble getting them scheduled because of their other commitments. So on the 27th, 2 weeks from tonight, we will have a 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock work session and give a presentation. They now have our updated numbers of kids in buildings, kids living in different parts of town. So it's about as accurate as we can be at this point. And I'd be interested to see what they have to say, if it's changed their views. And remember, they are also our demographer. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 kind of a deal. So I look forward to that meeting on the 27th, but please put that on your calendar for 5 o'clock, just as a reminder. And then transition time is here. A week from tomorrow, we're going to meet with Micah Hill with our entire administrative central office team, spend a couple hours, and there'll be lots of topics to be discussed and bring him up to date. He plans on being here on a regular basis starting next Tuesday. So he'll be here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the following last week of June, we're on 410s now, so he'll be here Monday through Thursday. So feel free to contact him if you need to. He's got an MCP email address already. And so if you need questions to go to his direction, it would be wise to do so. I'm certainly not going anywhere for the next 2.5 weeks, but I really think in all honesty, we need Micah to be in on just about every discussion we have. So that is going to take place, and next week we'll make that transition. And that's the announcements that I have. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
For the 5 p.m. boundary for the middle schools, I did ask the trustees to keep questions because we never had that follow-up one. So I just want to remind the trustees if they have any questions about the demographic information or about the boundary study to bring those so that we have those ready to go.
Yeah, I think it all ties together, in all honesty, so that'd be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Russ, is Micah going to be in the 5 p.m. meeting on the 27th? Is Micah going to be with us for the 27th meeting?
I'll find out. I would think so. I would think Mike is going to sit right out there on the 27th. If I was him, that's what I would do. He's going to be here at work that day, so I'll commit him now. But yeah, he should be here. Okay. Yeah, I would be surprised if he's not here.
All right, now we'll move on to item number 7, which is the consent agenda. There is no board discussion for the consent agenda as these are routine items. Is there any board member who wishes to move an item off to discuss it? Seeing none, so we'll move on to 7A1, which is an elementary motion to approve the consent agenda item. Is there an elementary motion? Moved by Trustee Witt. Second by Trustee Decker. No board discussion. Any public comment on the agenda item? Seeing none, all elementary trustees in favor for approving the elementary consent agenda, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. Now we'll move on to 7A2, which is the high school motion to approve the consent agenda, moved by Vice Chair Walker Andrews, second by Trustee Witt. No board discussion. Any public comment? All trustees in favor for approving the consent agenda for the high school. Unanimous to all trustees present. Now we'll move on to 8, new business. A1 is to approve the transportation route mileage change, and it is an action item, and this will go over to Mr. McWilliams.
Yeah, hello, thank you. It seems like we talked about this maybe last May. This is something that we'll approve in June, which is this current agenda item, which will approve routes going into next school year. And then once we run the routes for a couple months, we'll come back in October to submit our proper reimbursement mileage for that semester. And then we were coming back like in February, March, but now we're going to come back next May. So it'll be a May, June, October to get those proper reimbursements and those mileages approved and routes approved by the county. So this approval on this agenda item will go to the board, the County Transportation Committee Board in July for approval. So this is step 1 in that. And I can answer any questions.
Any questions from trustees? Seeing none, this is a full board motion. So is there a motion to approve the recommendation? Moved by Trustee Sherman. Second by Trustee Witt. Any final comments? Any public comment? All trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Now we'll move on to topic 2, which is the proposed easement at Meadow Hill Middle School, and this is over to you, Mr. McHugh and McWilliams.
I'll just turn it over to Burley to continue.
Yeah, thanks. If you look at page 30, it gives a really good detail of where that easement is being proposed. Currently, I must have submitted the wrong exhibit, but it shows if you look on 24th Avenue, that is on the east side of Meadow Hill Middle School. Right there at the furthest north section, it basically shoots diagonal across our playground into the building. And this is going to run it further along to the south of 24th Avenue, which will meet up with their electrical and allow them to run their utilities together. It's really an efficiency on their part, but it's also an efficiency a little bit on our part because we're abandoning some really old piping for our gas piping. And so we'll have all new. They'll restore the site, make it look brand new. There should be no disruption to our schools. Over the summer, we do have, we're cleaning and stuff, but there's really a very short amount of time that the gas will be shut off, but it shouldn't disrupt anything in the school.
All right, this is an elementary board motion, but are there any questions from a trustee? Seeing none, is there a motion from an elementary trustee to approve the recommendation? Moved by Trustee Witt, second by Trustee Mercer. Any final trustee comments? Any public comment? All elementary trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. We'll move on to topic 3, which is the lease of cafeteria space at Lowell Elementary by Missoula Food Bank. And this is an action item for the elementary. And this is over to you, Mr. McHugh.
All right, thank you. So this is a lease of space. It's primarily the cafeteria, but includes some storage space at Lowell. The food bank offers a market that's been very popular there. The principal at Lowell supports the continuation of the lease, and so we're asking the board to approve the continuation of this lease. It's a $0 lease or $1 a year lease, and so it really allows the food bank to have access to the space under their operational insurance policy and to operate their services in that space. And it works well for the community and works well for for the food bank. So we support continuation of the lease.
Any trustee questions? Vice Chair Walker Andrews?
Take it or leave it. What I'm wondering is it possible for people to bring donations to the school, or do they still go to the food bank?
You know, that's a good question. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I know what their motto is, take what you need, leave what you can. But I'm not sure on that one. I'll look into that for you.
Any other, Trustee Sherman?
When we lease a space to someone else other than the school district, but it's owned by the school district, are they bound by the same laws as, like handouts and that kind of thing that the school itself is?
Is the tenant bound by the same laws?
Yes, since they're on school property.
Yes, they're subject to, in the lease language we have is you're subject to the board policies, procedures, and all rules and laws that are applicable to the space. So, so that, you know, unless there's some exception, my short answer would be yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other trustee questions? All right, is there a motion from an elementary trustee to approve the recommendation? Moved by Trustee Mercer, second by Trustee Decker. Any final comments? Trustee Decker?
Really glad that this program is going to continue. As a North Sider and sort of who we help manage a pantry in our neighborhood too. The need's enormous, and the folks at Lowell have really found the pantry to be a comfortable and safe and welcoming way of having a little extra food. It's been a really good thing. I actually would really support any efforts to try to establish similar things at some of our other schools.
Trustee Mercer?
The last part is what I want to say. I just assume there's nothing particular about Lowell in this regard, and that we would be happy at seeing these programs anywhere else and would offer a similar favorable lease terms to any other places.
I guess a follow-up to that. So you said it was principal supported by Ray, right? So if the other principals wanted to do something similar, would it be their initiative or would it be the district's initiative?
It would be the food bank's initiative. So the food bank, they initiated this effort, and so it'd be really within their capacity. I think we would look at it, and I think they looked at Lowell as being a good location to provide that support. Similar type programs have existed at Hellgate. They had, I can't remember what it was called, but it was a snack pack, I think, program that sort of a nonprofit put together to provide snacks to students. But I think we certainly would entertain any additional look, especially by the food bank. They really are a good partner. They're solid.
All right, any public comment? All elementary trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. And now we'll move on to item 4, which is the fiscal year 2022 financial audit. And this is information only, and back to you, Mr. McHugh.
You know, I just wanted to give the board an update since you haven't had the financial audit report, and it's because we're running a little bit late, and it's not our auditor's fault. We got them signed up real late in the game. We had our former auditors drop out at the last minute. They weren't able to staff the audit, and they were just had just been merged or part of a merger, been bought out. So the new auditors are we anticipate they'll be done by the end of this month. So you should see a report and soon. I'm not going to commit, but you'll see a report soon.
Any trustee questions? Seeing none, any public comment on the agenda item? Seeing none, on to topic 5, which is the Early Retirement Fund Budget Amendment Proclamation 2023-11E. And this is elementary motion. And back to you, Mr. McHugh.
Thank you. So the next 3 items are related in a sense. This is the time of year when we are eyeing our budgets for the end of the year and looking at our expenditures and looking at whether or not we'll have enough of the budget you've identified to cover expenditures to get us through the year. All of our budgeted funds have reserves, so our solution is to pull in funds from the reserves if we need to. And so we're asking the board to approve a budget amendment, which essentially allows us to use reserves. And in the first agenda item, as mentioned, this is the Elementary Retirement Fund. We pay for our the FICA and TRS and PERS costs here, and retirement expenditures. So the agenda item references increased expenditures relating to number of retirements, and retirement affect how much we expend out of this fund, but that's really not the issue this year. That's typically the issue, but it's not this year. We have retirements, but not a increased number. It's primarily just expenses during the course of the year. I referenced the fact that these are non-federal fund expenditures for payroll, and any federal funds, we pay both the payroll and the fringes with the grant funds, whereas we pay salaries out of the general fund and pay these retirement costs out of the retirement fund. So it's really a matter of having some tight budgeting in August. We budgeted real tight. I think we're going to end the year right at the amounts we budgeted. This is a kind of a safety net if we do have some late retirements, and to ensure that the final payrolls, which we have several more to go through in June, cover all these costs. So I don't think we'll use the amendments, the amounts that are identified for the amendment, but just to be cautious and safe. Happy to answer any questions.
Any trustee questions? Trustee Mercer?
This may be more relevant to item 8 down there, but, my attention has been other places with work, but do we have a budget committee meeting, and we're getting close to August budget, and we're gonna do this thing again where here's the budget and rubber stamp it. We have this bottom one envisions that there was some savings and some money. We told parents at Paxton and everywhere else, you only get this many, special providers. We're making the cuts. I mean, are we gonna, so that's my lead up to ask. I think we need to keep having that committee, or we need to bring it to this committee. I really think the board needs to own the hard decisions coming up, and that needs to start now, or it will just be too late. Sorry, not much of a question.
No, I think the short answer is yes, and the timing we're looking at for that budget committee meeting, which we'd like to continue with the committee, is in September. And yes, it really has no effect on the August budget adoption, and really there isn't much that can be done related to the budget adoption in August. I mean, I don't disagree with you, and part of that is, we renew staff. We pass levies in anticipation of the salary increases that are contemplated. And it's really going into next budget year that the following budget year where we're running out of ESSER funds and where we are looking at trying to build in these other positions or prioritizing. So more of a general fund related question than a budget amendment for the retirement fund, but still in September, we'll have final expenditures for this year, and it's a good place to start is to look at how we ended the year. And yeah, this point in time in the year, we're winding down budgets and seeing where we land. And it's been an odd last 3 years since COVID, just because of the inability to fill positions and how positions have worked for us from a planning standpoint. So. Hopefully that answers your question.
Trustee Witt?
Hey, mine actually works. Just want to clarify, because didn't we kind of already make some of those hard decisions for this next fiscal year that we're approving in August? Because if I remember right, in the budget committee meeting, you kind of brought to us, here's what is going on with ESSER, this is what I'm kind of proposing. And then we did have a few tweaks that we wanted to do, particularly when it came to what to ask for with regard to levies and moving some money around a little bit.
No, it's totally right. It wasn't without conversation and really, as you point out, we're living with the ESSER and general fund operating side by side to a certain degree. So where they really have to meld, or the expenditures within both budgets or both expenditure areas need to meld is the following year, which is where a lot of conversation will take place. We're still leaning on ESSER for the general fund in FY24 in both the elementary and the high school.
Sorry, just a little bit more. And so just, I don't know if this is as relevant to this topic or if it's any of these others on here, but so the next finance and budget committee meeting, what we're largely discussing is the next year, correct? And kind of the end of ESSER and what we're going to do, right? And I do share with Trustee Mercer, and I think we do need to own that as a board and be more involved continually in those discussions and in what is cut, what is added, what types of things we prioritize and keep.
Yes, that'll be the timing. That's right.
Pat, can I add to that? Just we talked about this, even to the extent, most years you're talking about these budget that you approve in August, in January and February. We need to back that up to September. We've even talked about the two meetings, and of course I'm not going to be here, but the two meetings that take place each month, one of them simply be a budget discussion, because 24-25 is going to be the year of tough decision-making. And it's going to be, and you're actually absolutely right, Keegan, everybody on the board needs to understand the positions that are out there, the positions of what we can afford and can't, and the prioritization and all that. So I don't know if that's going to follow through or not, of one meeting a month being simply a budget discussion, but that is the importance and the extent of it that I think is in front of you. This coming school year is pretty much all decided monetarily, where we're going and what we've got done. It's the following year, it's going to have some tough decisions because ESSER is out, and we got to make decisions. So September is really where we do want to get started, which is quite early in the process for most years. So, but I did just hit me that we've talked about meeting one meeting a month, maybe being a budget at the full board level, so it's not at the budget committee level, so everybody understands. So that's the level of importance I think I would present to you as you prepare for 24-25.
A couple of us trustees talked about having a work session with the budget committee or at this level sooner than later. And maybe this is something we'll talk at agenda setting, but I'd like to hear from what Vice Chair Walker Andrews thinks, that maybe we do have 2 meetings in July, and one of those meetings be focused on the audit report that we hope to get soon, and talk about what our next steps will be focusing on when it comes to the budget. And that's something we can talk with once Micah is in place as well, but that's something we can really think about, because I know that's something Trustee Mercer has brought up a couple of times already. So I do understand that this is something we should all be ready to do. Trustee Mercer?
Yeah, and I guess I feel that in the past, we have gotten a pretty good picture of revenue in, I guess. I feel we have not been as clear about what we're spending. I feel like when the Paxson thing blew up, parents came and said the school board made a decision, and we didn't, right? There was no, I mean, I agreed with the decision that was made and didn't, but that wasn't a decision. Now, maybe the district and maybe other board members want to say back off and no, this is just an executive decision by the administration, that's fine. But until someone backs me off on that, I guess I do want to be involved in making the call, whether we have interventionists or another classroom teacher or art teachers or whatever. And maybe that's too in the weeds, and I don't know, but that's where my feeling is. And I don't know what we spend. I don't think we've talked transparently about, is the cost per student at this school or that school the same? What do these programs cost? What do we, I mean, on everything. I mean, I think a review of everything is in order, given the stakes.
Trustee Decker?
First of all, Chair Oldperson, thank you for this kind of discretion to have this conversation. I know this isn't exactly what the agenda item is about, so thank you for that, but I think it is an important discussion. I really appreciate this call for more information and being better informed, and also being more involved. But I would caution us that really, especially since we do have a new superintendent coming in as well, that our role as the board is to walk a line of being highly informed and highly communicative about values, but not micromanaging administrative decisions about the setting up and management of the district. Patterns of issues and problems are where a board should step in, but our code of ethics and our guidelines about what trustees are to do and not do are really clear, that we hire the superintendent to set up and structure and operate the district, and that includes the determination about certain roles. Now, having said that, it is our job to know very well the implications of those kinds of decisions and to be very well informed about what various programs cost, how funding actually moves through the district. And I do think we can do a lot more around that. And for my own brain power, I would love the idea potentially of some deep dive, like 5 o'clock sessions around budget to focus in on like, how does title work? What does that really mean in schools? Or let's talk about school food. Like, what does that look like? Let's talk about activities in sports and what that looks like financially, and have sort of a deep dive into all of those topics as like a 1 hour. Because I think it's such a big district with so many programs, it would be really hard to try to just wrap your mind around it in a night or two. So as we think about getting the board involved and on board, that would be maybe another suggestion for how to do that education process over the course of a couple of months.
Yep, no, but I think we can definitely take this to the agenda setting meetings. When we do meet again next week, we can bring up Vice Chair Hobbins as well, up to speed on the discussion, so. All right, any other final topics or comments before we move on to the elementary board motion? Nope. So is there a motion to approve the recommendation for the Early Retirement Fund Budget Amendment Proclamation 2023-11E? Moved by Trustee Mercer, second by Trustee Decker. Any final comments? Any public comment? All elementary trustees in favor for the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. So on to topic 6, which is the High School Retirement Fund Budget Amendment Proclamation 2023-11S. And this is back to you, Mr. McHugh.
This is really the same comments as before, so I don't have anything else to add.
Any other questions, high school questions? No. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation? Moved by Trustee Sherman. Second by Trustee Witt. Any final comments? Any public comment? All trustees in favor for the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Are you going to vote, Arlene? Yes. Oh. Unanimous to all trustees present. So now we're on to topic 7, which is the Transportation Budget Amendment Proclamation 2023-11E, and this is an elementary board motion. Back to you, Mr. McHugh.
Same concept, different fund. This is a transportation fund, but again, eyeing the end of the year and the need for additional authority to complete expenditures, which is the reason for this budget amendment.
Any questions? Trustee Mercer?
Can you give some suggestions about why this one might have been close to being at budget or over?
Yeah, There was additional special education routes, which are about 45,000 a pop. This one's a little higher, and I think that the main source is that the estimate that we got from our transportation guru was based upon budget rather than expenditure at the beginning of the year. So you would apply a negotiated increase to the prior year budget amount rather than the prior year expenditure amount. So you're going to be off a little bit as a result. So that's the rationale. I think it was we set up our budget a little bit too low at the outset.
Vice Chair Walker Andrews.
Yeah, this kind of fits with what we were talking about before about needing to get into the weeds on certain things, because I've never been quite sure how the transportation levy, works, and how we get these reserves. So was it just that we were cheap one year, or how did that happen?
So all of the funds have the ability to reserve up to a set statutory amount. And so the transportation fund can be reserved up to 20%. It's a good practice to build reserves. And the only way you build reserves is you generate more revenue through permissive levies than you're going to need for expenditures. And when we were going through COVID and being very conservative in our levies, we weren't building reserves up. So our reserve balances are not significant. They're probably low relative to where we would like them to be. But that's how the reserves work. They work through your permissive levies. So when we adopt budgets in August, like in the elementary side, we would want to include some revenue increase to build our reserves up. That's how they work. But the transportation fund in general it's funded primarily by local permissive levies with a little bit of county reimbursement and a little bit of state reimbursement, but it's primarily local levies, and the primary expenditure is contracted services.
Any other trustee questions? This is the elementary motion. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation? Moved by trustee Witt. Second by trustee Decker. Any final comments? Any public comment? All elementary trustees in favor for approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. Moving on to topic 8, which is the multi-district year-end funding. And this is back to you, Mr. McHugh.
All right, so this agenda item addresses really our planning at this moment in time. And the general fund has to be expended by June 30. And so we're in the process of liquidating requisitions and completing the expenditure of the general fund. We're going to come to a point this month where we'll talk with Superintendent Lodge and likely Superintendent Hill about preserving funds that are available at the end of the year from the general fund. And this is what we've recommended in the past, and it includes preserving some funds by transferring expenditures from the general fund or from other funds to the general fund. So as an example, we generate Medicaid revenue as a result of our services supporting Medicaid students. We use those funds to pay for special education staffing. What we would do is move expenditures from those Medicaid funds to the general fund in order to consume the general fund dollars, thereby getting to zero on June 30th and preserving at the same time those Medicaid resources. So the Medicaid resources are really invaluable in the SPED area because we use them to hire staff when we've already adopted our general fund budget. So those are necessary funds. Another area where we have what we call soft money or one-time only funds is indirect costs or indirect funds. We've also moved expenditures to the general fund from rental funds, from the building reserve, from the tech fund when we've needed to, and to cover food service expenditures. What we don't preserve through those transfer of expenditures, we would transfer to the multi-district account. That's that interlocal agreement we have, the multi-district agreement. Unlike other years, we anticipate the curriculum office making some purchases for adoptions after June 30. So what we'd likely do is come to the board and ask the board to approve some use of these multi-district funds to cover some of those adoptions. And that's an ideal or a perfect example of the kind of use of those funds that you're able to preserve at the end of the year. So this is a measure to preserve funds to the greatest extent that we can at the end of the year.
Any trustee questions? All right, there's two motions. First one will be the elementary motion to approve the recommendation. Is there a motion? Moved by trustee Witt, second by trustee Mercer. Any final comments? Any public comment? All elementary trustees in favor of approving the recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. And now, is there a high school motion to approve the recommendation? Moved by Vice Chair Walker Andrews, second by trustee Sherman. Any final comments? Any public comment? All trustees in favor for approving the high school recommendation, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. Now we'll move on to B, personnel negotiations and policy. Topic 1 is to approve the personnel report, and this is over to you, Mr. Rott.
All right, this would be our regular routine monthly report for both the elementary and high school. There's nothing particular difference from other reports.
Any trustee questions? Yes, you can make a comment.
So it's sad that that's the last time we will hear from Mr. Rott those words. After a long, illustrious career as a teacher, a principal, an HR director, and I mean it sincerely, Dave, thanks for your service. I applaud you. You've served this district well for a long time.
Thank you very much.
You want to say it one more time? It's a normal.
Oh, no, I was just saying thank you. Thank you very much.
It's a normal personnel report.
I turn over somebody else to the dad jokes for trustee Witt moving forward.
Is there an elementary motion to approve the personnel report for the elementary district? Moved by trustee Decker. Second by trustee Witt. Any final comments? Any public comment?
It could be exciting for his last time if we just voted it down and see what happened. Give him something to do for the next week.
We could do that. All elementary trustees in favor of approving the recommendation or the report, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. Now we'll move on to the high school. Is there any questions for the high school? Any questions from trustee high school? Is there a motion from a high school trustee? Moved by Vice Chair Walker Andrews. Second by trustee Sherman. Any final comments? Thank you, Dave, for your service to the community of Missoula. Any public comment? All trustees in favor for approving the secondary personnel report, please indicate yes by raising your hand. Unanimous to all trustees present. We'll move on to item 9, which is the Board of Trustees. Topic is the Montana School Board Association update by Vice Chair Walker Andrews.
Okay, last week I attended the Montana School Boards Association meeting, and I thought I would talk about 4 things very briefly that came up there. The first is that we will be getting from them an update to their officers, the dues revenue estimates, and then their principles and guidelines, an advocacy resolution, and a gap analysis resolution. So at the meeting, what we were doing was discussing where these things are and making recommendations. And I will bring, when we get that ballot, to everyone, but we're being asked to vote for a new Vice President Sue Corrigan from Kalispell, who would be the president the next year, and then Vice President Crystal Zentner, who would become vice president the next year. Then, like I said, principles and guidelines that have been updated. There was also a resolution to talk about advocacy from now through 2029, just because things have been moving so fast and there were so many education bills this last session. The feeling was we need to be much more on top of things going forward. And so there's been changes there. And then finally, the gap analysis resolution is based on basically a long time ago when there were cases about whether the state was providing the appropriate amount of money to school districts. And so it's always looking at where we are and where we're hurting and what obstacles are there, et cetera. And you'll be asked to look at those. Also, remember last meeting we talked about the early literacy program and how we renamed our literacy program, and there was some discussion about that. It was HB 352, but they were urging districts to do what we did at our last meeting, which is to be ready with our programs because the money's not there now. It won't be till next year, but you've got to be ready and have your programs in place to actually then get those funds. The law that was passed, however, gives parents and the students 3 different ways to try to get ahead so that you're a proficient reader in 3rd grade. One is homeschooling, in which they would give the parents $1,000, putting kids in a Jump Start program, and then those Jump Start programs would sort of give you 1 1/4 A and B, okay? And then the third is like our early literacy program that we already have, which is 1 1/2 A and B. Now, they also talk in this bill about how the Montana School Board, not us, but the larger one, is supposed to come up with ways to assess whether kids are ready or needing this kind of program. Right now, the proxy is a free lunch, and we talked about that last time. But supposedly, the Montana School Board will come up with assessments to provide that kind of information. And I don't know how fast that will happen, is all I'm going to say. Because assessment's never an easy thing, and I don't know what they're thinking in terms of what they would count as the kind of assessment we need. The third thing I wanted to mention is that the Montana Quality Education Coalition, which has representatives from the superintendents and from the school boards, will be challenging the constitutionality of 2 bills. One is HB 562. That was the second charter school bill. There were 2 of them. One of them was allowing boards like us to accept recommendations, like you might want a new language immersion school in Missoula, and they would approach us. That one is okay. But the other one, 562, really puts no Title 10 type requirements on those schools. They would elect their own boards, the staff and the parents whose kids go there, so they don't follow any kind of notion that the electors who pay taxes in an area are actually being consulted about how the school is run. So that one's being challenged. And the other one is HB 393, and that's the one that sets up education savings accounts with families, with students with special needs. At this point in time, as I understand it, basically they would be giving the parents $7,500 to use for tutoring or private schooling or materials. I can't imagine that $7,500 is going to get you much of anything in terms of the kind of education kids with special needs might need. In addition, 95% of that money goes to the parents, but 5% goes to OPI for administering the program. So in effect, it's releasing all resident school districts from all obligations to educate a qualified student, which doesn't sound terribly constitutional. In addition, it's giving public funds to a person without a specific appropriation, which is also against the Constitution. And it is giving money to a person or a school that's not under control of the state. So those two bills will be, like I said, challenged. And as far as I know, there were two different attorney groups that they were considering. One is Upper Seven, and the other is McDonald and Sheehy, and it's looking as if Upper Seven is going to get those contracts. And then finally, the last and least important thing, the Montana School Boards Association was asked to provide 3 names to Dylan Clapmeyer for the governor to consider to be on the new board for the Digital Academy. And so they came up with Sue Corrigan, Mark Finicum, and Arlene Walker Andrews as their nominations. So we'll see what happens. I can't imagine that I will be selected, but you never know.
Any trustee comments or questions? Trustee Decker.
Thanks so much for all of that, and thanks for participating with MTSBA. That's so important. I did wanted to say one quick thing about the early literacy sort of paths forward that districts and families eventually might take. You mentioned that families could receive some monies for homeschooling to help children be ready. It's my understanding, and I think a lot of this is still being worked out, but I do think that that is intended to be for a home-based program of some kind that an outside entity that would be approved would probably be providing. I don't believe that I ever heard any discussions about this going straight to parents for delivering a homeschool curriculum itself. People would probably be pretty excited about the idea of monies coming specifically for homeschooling, but that wasn't the intent. What you will see is a lot of advertising being stepped up by a provider of online preschool in the state right now, who are pretty sure that they will be the recipient of a lot of that money. And so this online 15 minutes a day preschool thing is something that you'll see advertised. And you're right about the assessment of 4-year-olds piece. That probably will be really complex, but there are lots of early childhood folks who are actively involved in those conversations. So fingers crossed that really good results that get supportive starts to a lot of kids can come out of that.
Any other trustee questions or comments? Seeing none, any public comments? Seeing none, the time is now 6:59 and we are adjourned.
Recording stopped.